Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly comic interview podcast hosted by yours truly, David Harper. This week's guest is the Marvel editor on comics like The Mighty Thor, Black Panther, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Howard the Duck, Ant-Man, Angela, The Vision, The Ultimates, Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, and the upcoming Vote Loki. It's Wil Moss. Thanks for coming on, Will.
Yeah, sure. Happy to be here. Thanks.
So to start with, I just have to ask, is Marvel quietly having like an internal clone saga with you? Because you're editing a crazy amount of books.
No. Yeah. Like it's just been, Marvel's been good. They've, if I have, like, they're not stopping me. I think it's probably to my own detriment that nobody's telling me no for these things. But, yeah, I don't know. Marvel's continuing pretty well so far. And, you know, there's a great support system on Marvel. Marvel runs, I feel like the company man now, but Marvel runs really smoothly. They've got a lot of people behind the scenes who help make it all possible. Mm-hmm. That sounds just so bad, company man.
Well, I guess that's one of the things I'm curious about, because like that is, like I was saying, it's like a laundry list of books, and there, you know, there's great books throughout that. But one of the things, I mean, like, is part of that you just like pursuing like new books that you think are would be interesting to the audience and just like finding the right fit for you, or is that like you happen to get assigned books? Like, how does that aspect work of like you know, you're an editor for Marvel, like how do you get brought into like certain books, like, you know, Hellcat and Ant-Man and The Vision, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I mean, yeah, everybody has some like a group that they're with. I'm with you know, Tom Brevoort's Marvel Heroes group, mm-hmm. which is, you know, essentially the Avengers, and that applies to anybody who has ever been an Avenger or any connection to Avengers. So it gets to be a pretty broad group of characters. And you know, like when I started, I was handed over like Thor, and that, you know, leads to books like Angela and Loki and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, I mean, Marvel is good about, you know, I think it probably started with Squirrel Girl, mm-hmm. in terms of, you know, that ball got rolling, and then once it turned into success, I was able to, they were open to me doing other projects like that. I mean, Howard followed Squirrel Girl by only about 2 months, and by then, Marvel is good about hiring people and like trusting them. So it's been just an instance of then saying, okay, that works, so you can try something else. They're much more receptive to book ideas when things have gone well so far. So, so yeah, I mean, like Patsy was something that I pushed for, and Howard too, and they're developing Ant-Man. Obviously, there's a movie coming out, but nobody had it yet, so I jumped on that claim. And same with Vision. Like, you know, like there's just certain things where at Marvel, if we know we're in development or there's a film related coming up, that you got a pretty good chance of making those books happen. And if you just act fast, mm-hmm. you can move them up.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I find really interesting about the list of your books, because, like, you know, I was looking through your quite prodigious Comic Vine credits page. You were credited with working in mm-hmm. 789 comics, which is crazy. Even though I kind of feel like that was on the conservative side, having looked through it. But one of the things that I really appreciate is, like, at DC, it seemed like you primarily worked on like bigger hero books. But since moving to Marvel, you've kind of, like, while you're doing like Thor, you've like kind of cultivated a, I don't know. I mean, it's like it's not really a niche, because like The Vision and Squirrel Girl are obviously not similar, but it's a lot of books that you wouldn't normally see at Marvel. And for me, that's exciting, because like Squirrel Girl and The Vision, I would say probably are my two favorite Marvel books right now. And they're just so unique, and they're so fantastically told. But I'm curious, like, it sounds like these books are kind of more aligned with your own interests. Is that the case? Like, you're just trying to, I mean, you're tackling books that are more aligned with your own personal interests, or is it just a different challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to start with, you know, making a book that would that I'd be interested in reading. I mean, and that was when I reached out to Tom King about Vision. I said, Tom, I'm not really interested in reading a comic about Vision. Make me want to read a comic about Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing too, is I try to just hit the right people and then back off. Like if you have, that's how a lot of my books I think have worked so well is I've just been able to cast the right people, and then I have a good feeling about, and then I can back off because I hired them because I knew they'd be able to make these books into something great. So, I was a fan of all these people. I like Ryan North's writing. I like Eric Anderson's art. So I'm happy with this comic that is, written by Ryan North and drawn by Eric Anderson. Because it's,
Yeah. You talked about casting there, and I find it to be, it's a very interesting thing because, like, I'm gonna use Squirrel Girl as an example. I'm gonna be totally honest. I wrote a review that says this, and Ryan shared it on Tumblr and stuff, so he appreciated the review mostly because the fact that I admitted I started reading comics when I was 6. I'm 32 now. And
mm-hmm.
I always kind of considered Squirrel Girl to be just kind of a joke. And I think she was for a long time. She was a Great Lakes Avenger, and she was just this ridiculous person who would show up and you're like, oh, here's a flashback to her beating Dr. Doom. And you're like, wow, that is crazy. But
mm-hmm.
I was really skeptical about the comic, but I liked Ryan's stuff and I like Erica's stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I believe in the creators, even if I'm very skeptical about Squirrel Girl, and I picked it up and I loved it. I mean, it is. When I did my end of the year awards and everything, I named it the best comic of the year because it's just every time I read it, it brings a smile to my face. But when it comes to casting, how do you approach that? For something like Squirrel Girl or The Vision or something like that, do you start with one person, or do you kind of go in with an idea of who your ideal writer and artist and colorist, etc., would be from the start?
I usually spend whenever I get a book, I'll think a lot about the creative team. I don't know, so I just internalize it, and I just spend a lot of time just feeling out who would be good before, and even if I feel pretty good about, okay, I want to move on this person, I still sit on it for a while, and I don't know, just really make sure that it feels good in my gut, I guess, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want the book to succeed, and I don't want to have to back out of any initial conversation. I want everything to just roll right from the start. It's every book is kind of different from how it's cast. I mean, Squirrel Girl, for instance. I hired Ryan to write Young Avengers serial for me, and that was on a book that I was working with Tom Brevoort with, and so that introduced Ryan to Tom, and Tom had been wanting to do a Squirrel Girl series for years. He and Dan Slott had done, pretty much they're responsible for all the fun Squirrel Girl stories in the past, 15 years or so prior to this book. And that was Tom said, hey, Ryan might be a good fit for the Squirrel Girl book that I'm letting get going. And then so that I was like, yes, and that clicked. And then I said, I have a perfect artist for it, Eric Henderson. And that's with Eric. I just had a feeling that was going to work. I didn't know that it would work as well as it has, and I'm thrilled that Ryan and Eric have become such a great team.
Mm-hmm.
That you can't always count on. But I don't know. I'm with the philosophy of just hiring the right people and then getting out of the way and letting them do the book. So.
Mm-hmm.
And any character can become a favorite if it's just handled right. I'm with you. I hadn't ever really given much thought to Squirrel Girl prior to this. Actually, I bought her first appearance when I was 12 years old or something like that. I remember buying the spinner rack and not thinking too much of it, but just remembering that. And certainly, where I had no real affection for the character, but I could immediately see ways that a creative team like Ryan and Erica could make something that would make that character, click for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the interesting thing about so many of your books is like, and why I really appreciate it. I've talked to a lot of people, like outside the podcast, inside the podcast, and stuff like that, and I've talked to them about, um, the books that they're working on, and a lot of people always have nothing but good things to say about you. So there's your compliment for the evening. But the thing that I always find to be so inspiring about your works is just what you were saying. It really feels like you're finding the right creators for a book and you're getting out of the way, and not saying that you're not doing your job too, but it's like you're allowing them to tell the best story that they can. Because like, well, one thing I wanted to ask you is like, you read like The Vision, and The Vision is a book that like I never would have expected The Vision to star in. It's like I wasn't intending to pick it up, but this one comic retailer in Dublin, Big Bang Comics, had tweeted out like a preview of it, and I saw it, and I was just like, "Holy crap! This is about him like living a domestic life with a Vision family." That is definitely something I've never seen. But I'm curious, like, what genre would you label The Vision with? I've kind of bounced that back and forth in my head, and I think I've kind of decided it's kind of a horror story, which is crazy. I know it's not exactly a horror story, but it's so haunting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's horror is definitely because every issue something horrible happens for sure. I mean, I kind of view it more as like science fiction.
Yeah.
With like I read all the great layers that good science fiction can have, and tragedy that good science fiction can have. It's almost the same way that like say what you will in the movie, but like AI, was like just a deeply sad movie that was largely about these robots. I mean, I guess it's horror is definitely there, but it's more like a tragedy, like that's kind of I feel like a better description of the book, which is
that's a much better phrase for it, because it's I remember I was talking to a comic writer like earlier on in my podcast, and he said something along the lines of, is like, it's hard to really label a lot of comics with one specific genre, especially something like The Vision, because it's like The Vision, the way that Tom's writing it, and Gabriel is drawing it, and Jordy's coloring it, and everything like that. I mean, it really is like a slice of life. It just happens to be a slice of android life. And it's like, sometimes there have been parts that have made me laugh. I'm not saying all the time, but there have been parts that have made me laugh. There have been parts that like freak me out. There have been parts that like make me really sad. And it's fascinating because it's, it really like, I not that like I'm saying that like that's what this is, but it's like the type of story I guess most people would expect from like a creator-owned comic, but it's just like, people are like I was saying, you were just enabling people to tell the story that they want to tell in the way that they want to do it, and it's worked out tremendously well.
Yeah, I mean it's I just repeat myself, but I mean I just if you can get the right people, it's all casting, and I mean I same with Squirrel Girl. I couldn't have predicted that Squirrel Girl would have gone as well as it has. And I couldn't predict it at the start that Vision would have gone as well as it has. I mean, it's caught all of us by surprise. I mean, you can't know for sure. I mean, I knew, I just wanted a Vision book that would, because I knew it's an uphill battle to launch a book like Vision, because, he's not exactly a huge fan favorite. So it needed to be something pretty extreme to draw attention. And, but then, Tom and Gabriel and Jordy and Clayton are the people that have made it this insanely rewarding, disturbing series. So
yeah. Well, so I want to dial things way back to the beginning for you, because you've worn a couple hats now in your comic career. You've worked for both Marvel and DC editorial. But I'm curious, like, how did you end up in comic book editorial? Was it always an objective for you to work in comics, or was it just kind of like the industry that ended up being the best fit for you?
I mean, I've been a comics fan since I was a kid, and I worked in newspapers in college and after college, and at some point it clicked that there's a lot of, I could kind of do this editing job with the hobby that I love, and then it was just a matter of finding opportunities to end up in at DC. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky because there's only so many of these slots, and there's plenty of people who are after them. So it's it's just lucky in that regard. But I mean, coming from the newspaper world had me some good advantages. I was kind of ready to hit the ground running when I started, so that was kind of beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it definitely helped that you were a comic fan yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I'm a huge comic geek. I don't know how much that plays a role in things because I try not to let that drive books too much, or at least influence my thinking too much. But
sure.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so for those that are unaware, I mean, that's one of the things about. I think one of the interesting things about editors is it seems like a lot of times when editors are brought up, it's because of I don't know, things like quote unquote editorial oversight and stuff like that. But one of the things I've come to realize, having talked to a lot of editors, is a lot of people don't really realize exactly what you guys do, and a lot of it's really like you're saying, you get the right people on the book, and you get out of the way, and you do what you can to help them tell a story. But I'm curious, what is, for those who are unaware, what's a day in the life of a Marvel editor like? What's an average day for you?
It's a lot of emails. Just I'm sure like most jobs now, but it's a million different things really. It's I don't know if it's a typical day. We get the scripts that we have to review and get to artists. There's marketing materials that we have to go over and approve. There's covers that we have to get mocked up working with the bullpen. There's internal meetings that we have about scheduling and so forth. There's it's something that it's a job where you just have to constantly be trying to remember what else you've got to deal with, because it's stuff's always popping up and distracting you from not the stuff you need to do, but the stuff that's distracting you, the stuff you need to do. It's a tough job to stay on top of. But I mean, it's also just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. So it's not actually too tough at all. But it's a great job. I mean, because there's also a lot of good people at Marvel. Everybody's there because nobody's in comics. You have to love comics to be in comics, right? So everybody. Otherwise, that's a nice aspect of it too. There's a lot of good people at Marvel that we work with, and the freelancers too. I mean, I don't work with any. No jerks on my watch. I mean, there are jerks out there, and I've worked with some in the past. But that's also something that helps a lot of the small stuff. Is just that it's a fun group of people to collaborate with and work with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it always kind of sounds like you. Email is obviously a staple of everybody's day-to-day life, but it seems like you have I don't know. It's like your job is almost like the person who's making sure that all the plates are spinning all the time, especially with how many books that you're working on and everything like that. But is schedule management something that you kind of do, just making sure books are on time and everything's flowing, or I don't want to make it seem like you're constantly
that's what I'm supposed to do on paper. I don't do too good a job of that in actuality. But yeah, I mean, definitely that's our job ultimately is making sure these books get produced. I mean, one way or the other. That's the ultimate goal. So yeah, that's a big part of it, is just constantly making sure that everything's moving. Because anything, we don't have. There's no healthy schedules out there. Everything, if it starts healthy, it quickly gets not unhealthy. It's a matter of just constantly needing to keep moving, or you'll get behind. So it's always, there's no real downtime, but that's fine. I mean, I like working that way.
No, I totally feel you. I mean, like I said, I work in an advertising agency, and it's like the worst days are always the days where it's like things kind of slow down, because then not only does the day take forever, but it's also you're like, I really want to be doing something. It sounds like you're constantly you kind of have something to be doing, which is great. But I want to talk about a little bit about like the specifics of the books, because it's like, you know, like I said, some of your books are a little bit more atypical, and a great example, or a great recent example, was the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl #7, from Ryan and Erica. It was a choose your own adventure comic. I love choose your own adventure books. Like growing up, those were like those are super fun, and I was horrible at them, but it was also, I think that was kind of part of the fun, was being bad at them. But anyways, like choose your own adventure comics are few and far between, and I'm pretty sure all of them I've seen are from Ryan, including like I guess like To Be or Not to Be isn't like a comic, it's a book, but still. Anyways, but to see that at Marvel was crazy. Like I'd never expected something like that. But for something like that issue, for example, was that as simple as like Ryan and Erica sending you notes saying, "Hey, what do you think about doing a choose your own adventure book?" Or was it a bigger process than that?
Well, I mean, I had been like, I started talking with Ryan about stuff when I was at DC. Nothing ended up happening, but shortly after I moved to Marvel and hired Ryan right away, pretty much. But I've been wanting to do a choose your own adventure story for a while. I didn't want to ever press him too hard though, because I didn't want him to feel like that he was being pigeonholed as the choose your own adventure guy. So he was patient. He let me. I just held back, but then Ryan eventually was like, "Oh, let's do the choose your own adventure story." I was like, "Great." And he, we couldn't have done it without his, experience. Like, I wish we could had room in the issues to show like Ryan went through an extensive note process to make sure that everything works. Like he sent us scans of all the pages that he'd done. Like he did rough layouts for pretty much everything, because it can't just be something that he works out in its head like a normal script. It's something that has a million moving pieces, and so Ryan, everybody had to put in a lot of work for that issue to work. But it's something that we all just really enjoyed doing. So you just do the work. That issue in particular, I gotta say, Travis Lanham, our letterer, was dynamite, because that issue asked a lot of him, and it was, even though Ryan had done Choose Your Own Adventure stories before, the rest of us hadn't, so there was a lot of there was some trial and error, and Travis had the patience of a saint, and that was all. It worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's done Choose Your Own Adventure books. I don't know if he's done any comics before that are Choose Your Own Adventure, but
he did an adventure. One of his Adventure Time issues was a Choose Your Own Adventure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, like, one of the added wrinkles to it is just like having to choose your own adventure. The art too. It's like laying those pages out. And everything. It was a really great issue, but it was so interesting, because it was like, I mean, I obviously did the Adventure Time one now, but I just never seen anything like that, and I was stunned by how well it worked, really.
Yeah, I mean, sure, that was added a little stress to the issue, was knowing that it had to all work, otherwise the whole thing fell apart. So, but I mean, it was a fun issue for sure, and it's something that it's like that book has created its own. Like that book has it's proven to be a successful book, so it can do things like that without anybody batting an eye, So,
yeah, that was.
I think
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
When the book started off, and there was Squirrel Girl 4, the issue where she basically, defeated Galactus by talking with him. That issue, I think, was where things started to really snowball, because that was Ryan had the idea of having the book open with her having seemingly defeated Galactus, and then immediately cutting to the letters page, which it was just something that I think then was like, all right, we got a lot of fun possibilities here.
Yeah.
And people like it, so let's roll with them.
That was one of my favorite comics of the last. That's just one of my favorite comics ever. It was just so great, because I love how in Squirrel Girl, and I hate that. I'm sorry that I keep bringing up Squirrel Girl out of all of your books, but
no, that's the one I talk about the most too. That's my Twitter avatar. Yeah, I'm with you.
But like, I love that issue, and one of the things I really love about it is just like the fact that it always seems like Doreen kind of comes up with like solutions that are, I mean, they're atypical for a superhero. Like, Craven, she always has like different solutions for, and like, Galactus, she talked him down and offered him a planet that's made out of nuts, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just so fantastic. And that, I mean, I knew like the first time I picked up, and when I picked up number 1, and there was like I guess you would call them footnotes, and I was just like, okay, this comic's gonna be a little different. And I really liked it, the Howard and Squirrel Girl crossover, when like Chip kind of had to like start doing the footnotes too, and he was like, "This is weird."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was going to ask you about was, every, like, you guys have assistant editors there as well. So how does like that interaction work? Like, do you mostly focus on the big picture and they kind of do the day to day on the books, or like how does that level of delegation work? Sorry, I'm getting super nitty gritty on you.
That's how they work sometimes. I think the healthier ones are where it's kind of like both parties doing a mix. I mean, there's too much small stuff for not to be for one person to handle, so everybody has to do a little bit of that. And but it's also, if you've got assistants who are engaged with the book, they're gonna be that much more, they're gonna work that much more. They're gonna care more about the book. So you're gonna get a better product, better comic at the end. So it's. I mean, assistants are partners. It's not. I always try to say like assistant editor instead of just assistant. I think I just said that 3 times. But because they're not assistants. They're the editors too. I mean, I work with Chris Robinson and Charles Beecham now, and they're both. I work with Chris on Black Panther, and I couldn't do that book without him. And Charles on all my other books is really what keeps them all running. And so, I mean, it's that's where it ideally kind of is a partnership. Using each other's sounding boards and so forth. There's every day there's all kinds of decisions that you got to make pretty quick. That's always nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, so it's basically like they're just like teammates, and it's.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's like, I brought up, earlier about how like everybody always has nothing but nice things to say about you, but it seems like, for your job, like you need to focus on 2 things. It's kind of like, I don't know, I'm a huge basketball fan, and like one of the big things that they always say about head coaches for the NBA or any level of basketball is like you both need to like do the X's and O's of your job that everybody thinks about, but there's also like, personality management, and not saying that that's what you're doing, but it's like, the best way you can create great comics is to, find the right people, make sure that they're happy, and then also give them the tools that they need to succeed. And it seems like, you and your teammates, like that's kind of your jam. That's what you guys are going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I want to ask about artists, because a lot of times when people talk about like Marvel and DC, they throw out like the phrase like house style, and one of the things that I really appreciate about all of your books, but I mean, like, really honestly, like at this point, like you look at Marvel across the board, I personally don't really think there's a house style, but you look at your books and it's amazing how diverse it is, because like, on Thor, you have Russell Dowderman, who I mean, honestly, like I feel like that guy is like one of the best superhero artists right now. He's just unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm grateful every day for working with Russell. He's the best.
Yeah. I mean, and then you also got Matt Wilson coloring him, and he's just incredible too. And then you have like, you have brilliant comedic cartoonists like Erica Henderson and Brittany Williams. Like Brittany Williams, I mean, not to always somehow turn this into a Brittany Williams fan club, but I had never seen her before. Before Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, and like it's like at first, like I told Kate Leth this. I was like, at first with the whole size changing thing, it was kind of alarming to me. I was like, is this wrong? Am I reading this badly? What is happening here? Why is she changing sizes? But then I grew to really appreciate it because it does so much for the storytelling, and both her and Erica are just such like fantastic character actors or character artists. And and then like on Ultimates you had like recently you had like Christian Ward, and like that dude is like an accomplished painter, like that is just out of this world, and like which is why he was doing a Galactus story. But for you, was bringing in like new impactful artistic voices to Marvel, like was that a goal for you, or is that more just like kind of a byproduct of you trying to find the right people to tell the best stories you can?
I mean, yeah, I wish it was the former, actually the latter. I mean, it's kind of everything. I don't know. I mean, it's a little. I guess like everything I do is I try to do is just in service of making a good comic. So it's really just been a matter of like what's going to be the best artistic voice for this particular project. And like I knew with Squirrel Girl that right away that Erica would be the right fit for it, and I knew with and also like with Hellcat, I again kind of like with Vision, I knew it would need like to stand out. It's going to need something different. Otherwise, it will go the way of a lot of not just other past Hellcat books, but other books along those lines. So, and it's helped me. It's been beneficial to me to work with people who are not just I haven't known one from all for years and years and years. Like I see it pay off all kinds of different books to see these people who are like Brittany and Erica and Ryan and Chip and all these guys who are just kind of coming at this with different eyes, kind of like we're thinking about things that are differently than other people might otherwise. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about what artists like Erica and Brittany and Joe Quinones and Howard like just contribute to, and like it's I mean, first of all, their art is amazing, but then they also have so much like personality and just the whole storytelling tricks and jokes and just acting that just make the books these great they are.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I mean, that's one of the things that stands out the most, especially about like the three you just mentioned, Joe and Erica and Brittany, is just like their character acting is so great, and it adds to like the comedic elements so much. Like there's so many moments where like Erica's art just straight up makes me laugh out loud, and it's so great. I have to ask, what is your Twitter avatar is from Squirrel Girl? I don't remember that. What is that?
I think that's from Squirrel Girl 6, and it was when Doreen was trying to see if maybe Nancy also had an ability to speak with animals, so she took her to the zoo to talk with different animals. And Erica's got this great little bit where one of the monkeys that she was trying to talk with, it was the monkey's turn to respond, and his finger up its nose. And when that page came in, the pencil came in, I replied to the whole thread. I said, "Hey, I'm calling dibs on that panel. I'm going to make it my Twitter avatar. Nobody else can claim that," because it was just hilarious. Yeah,
that's so funny. I that's one of the things that I think is really great. Like I always say like it's an obvious statement to make, but like the magic of comics comes from like the marriage of writing and art. That's one of the coolest things is like every artist is going to have a different angle on that, and I have no idea if like it was in Ryan's script to have like the monkey have its finger up its nose, but it's just like. For me, it's just like this thing that happens and it makes you laugh and it makes you want to make it your Twitter avatar. It's so great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, for the record, I don't remember whether it was in the script or there or thing either, but I think it's something that's,
yeah. So
I can't say good enough things about Joe Quinones. I just get back to him for a second. Like every time he turns in art, I'm like, how does like I don't know how Joe is just phenomenally talented, and it's like something like he doesn't realize how great he is, and it's like hope he doesn't like wise up that he's spending all this time drawing up Howard the Duck comic book. So like he's a brilliant fit for it, and I'm super happy he's done the book. But I just think Joe's just so skilled as an artist that it's been, we're lucky to have him on the books.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was actually going to ask though, like, you know, for like people like Brittany and people like and somebody like, you know, Erica, for example, I had only before Squirrel Girl, I'd only seen her stuff, I believe, in Subatomic Party Girls. And it was like a Monkey Brain series. And like Brittany, I had never seen her before ever. And like Joe, I had seen his stuff on the internet, but I don't think I'd ever read a comic from him before. And I'm curious, like when it, you know, you're casting these books and everything like that, where, like, what do you look to for like potential fits? I mean, it's obviously you can't just like, I don't know, like tear the internet apart trying to find like, maybe you are, I don't know, tear the internet apart trying to find like the right artist or something like that. But it seems like you kind of have to stay on top of like the new voices and upcoming voices for art and writing if you want to cast as well as you possibly can. Like, are you just like always inundated with like reading materials effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I try. I mean, it's this job. You know, like you get into, you love comics, and ironically, it's kind of like it's hard to find time to read as much as you'd like to. Look at that ridiculous amount of unread comics, but I mean, yeah, you do have to keep abreast certainly of the current comics. But and you mentioned the internet. I mean, that's definitely a huge part of it. Is just in terms of at least art and stuff. You know, Erica, it wasn't. I hadn't seen her comic work first. It was art that she had been, you know, would turn up on Tumblr and Twitter, and then, you know, if anybody interests me at all, I'll follow them or something, just to then hopefully if something comes up that, oh hey, that person that would be a great fit for this. So like, you know, it doesn't cost anything to follow anybody. It's just a matter of you know, keeping your eyes open and remembering people. That's a big part of it too. But Brittany, as well as somebody else, I mean, she was from the internet. Again, like she's done some really great. I'm a big Superman fan, and she's done a lot of great, like little series of Daily Planet character designs and stuff like that. That were just so like adorable and great. And so then I just remember Brittany for things, you know, and then, you know, both people, it's important, like with people who are new to Marvel, you've got to kind of have them, help them get their foot in the door on something small before they move on to something else usually. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I had to like Brittany do a Squirrel Girl variant that like, it was so great. It just like confirmed everything. I was like, all right, Brittany's good to go on something. Got to find something that I can cast Brittany on before she gets, you know, busy with too much other stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, joke's on me, because then Brittany still picks up other books like Brittany. There's no stopping Brittany. Brittany produces like a machine. But, you know, and Erica, right, there's other thing. Erica was the same anthology where Ryan did a Young Avengers serial. I had Erica do a 2-page short story, and it was like, great. And like, it's just, you have to kind of get them in, and then they can go on other stuff. So,
yeah. Well, and I was actually going to mention, like you said, Brittany's machine. I mean, like, it is kind of amazing that she's doing, you know, Hellcat, plus she's doing Goldie Vance. And then you look at, like, Erica. Holy crap. Like, she's a Terminator, too. Like, she was doing Squirrel Girl and Jughead. Now she's doing Squirrel Girl and the Squirrel Girl graphic novel. I mean, like, it's really amazing that, like, they can stay so on top of schedule. And, like, you know, I think, like, Hellcat just had, like, a fill-in from, was it Natasha Allegri?
Uh-huh.
I think... And
yeah.
she was a great fit, but I mean, it's like, it's kind of amazing that she can do 2 books and only need like one fill-in after like the first arc, and it was a great stylistic fit for it too. So, but I actually I wanted to ask you about like kind of how your job differs depending on creator experience, and like one great example would be like, you know, you have Thor and you're working with Jason Aaron, who is like, you know, he's a veteran. He's like somebody who's done events, and he's done like, you know, small comics. He's done, you know, hero comics. He's done everything. He's like a super experienced guy. And then on Black Panther, you know, you're working with an extremely experienced writer, and I apologize if I mispronounce. Is it Ta-Nehisi Coates?
Ta-Nehisi.
Oh, okay. You know, you're working with him, and obviously he's a highly experienced writer in his own right, but he is writing his first comic. How does that, like when you're working on a book, like how does your experience differ when it comes to editing somebody who's like an extreme veteran versus somebody who's a lot newer to the medium?
Well, I mean, sure. Like, right. When Jason turns in a script, it's good to go. I mean, for the most part, like that guy is, like you said, he's the best, and he's been doing this for a long time, and I mean, with Jason, it's more like talking about his plans. Like it's it's more like having conversations about where he's going to go and the timing of things, and because he knows what he's doing. But sure, working with newer people, it's not like everybody who comes to us is a writer, like you said, with Ta-Nehisi, to some extent. So it's really not too much hand-holding or anything like that. It's it just maybe there's a little more development at the beginning in terms of getting all on the same page in terms of the story that we're about to tell. And you share scripts, usually Jason's scripts, well, in that case, with newer writers to kind of familiarize them with formatting. And but I mean, even when you do that, everybody still kind of writes a script. It's kind of their own style, and it's I don't know. I mean, luckily, people, all the writers I work with are top notch. It's not a lot, even for the people who read comics. They're all, and everybody's a real quick learner. I mean, Ta-Nehisi's a comics writing pro already. Black Panther 3 isn't even out yet, and the guy just has it down. I mean, his dialogue is amazing. I mean, he's got it. I don't know. I don't really know. I guess the answer to this is just, I guess, time a little bit is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it, like, experience may not matter as much, especially given the fact that, like, there's a ton of different ways you can write a comic script. There's a ton of different ways you can draw a comic. I mean, it's not like there's a, everyone has to follow this one way and that's the way it's done. And like, it seems like, it's really just like working with people to find like the best solution and the best fit for them. And yeah, that makes total sense to me.
Well, I feel like it's kind of like if a writer's confident in their voice, then everything else will just gel. I mean, like that's the most important part. I think is having a writer who knows what they want to, the story they want to tell. Because then everything else you figure out like how to manage. Like if they got a strong story and they got a confident voice, then the books will be fine no matter what. So that's something that, at least on the writing end, is also, I think, pretty critical, is like making sure that you can tell, no matter which samples they're writing, you're reading, that there's always a specific point of view behind it, and that there's always, everything's memorable about the writing. Like, so it's not just, you can tell that this guy was just writing a story because he had to write a story. Like, you want somebody who has stories that they got to get out of them.
Yeah.
And so if you can get those people, then that's definitely one of the big parts.
Mm-hmm. Well, the last question I have for you is when all new, all different Marvel was announced and everyone was doing like interviews and everything like that, everyone said Marvel was kind of going to be doing a season model. And while we don't really know what that looks like, some of your books like Black Panther and The Vision, I believe they're meant to both be 12 issues. Like Tom's, like he said, like 12 is gonna be his last issue, and I believe like Black Panther was originally planned to be 12 issues and everything like that. But I'm curious, like for you, or I mean for you, and like the way that you're approaching it and everything like that, does keeping stories to like a tighter, more focused like span of time, like if it's gonna be 12 issues, does that allow you to like, does that change how you guys work at all? Like, because like it seems like you have a determined beginning, middle, and end, really. Does that both change anything for you, like the way that you approach things? And then beyond that, does that kind of allow you to I don't know, kind of tell stories in a more unique, atypical way? Like you can try things out that you wouldn't normally expect from a comic because like it's going to be a more focused season type thing. Sorry, that was kind of a sprawling question.
That's fine. I mean, I think like you hit on the two that are like kind of set out with finite story arcs. I mean, Ta-Nehisi's Black Panther is like he's got an initial dwell, but then he's actually got like several years worth of stories planned after that. So that's he's more just like that's the length of his opening story arc almost. But I mean, certainly with Tom on Vision that's not often the case for the most part when there's that finite of a story in mind. I mean, it was before Tom ended up signing with DC. It was kind of an exciting prospect for, I think, both Tom and I about like what he would do after that, because it was such a finite point, and it was like, well, all right. So it's kind of like it would have been a pretty fun challenge to see what things would have gone there. But for most books, I mean, like, Chip and Joe are wrapping up their own in Howard, and Chip has had his character arc for Howard like in mind kind of the whole time. Mm-hmm. But it's been a nice it's an ongoing series, so there has been plenty of room for detours like that, crossover with Squirrel Girl and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, having a set plan helps on the art end for sure. With Black Panther, we have a better sense of, how if the arcs are very set, and it's easier to make sure that you've got the right art schedule, the right art teams available. Mm-hmm. But Jason's Thor run is a lot more open-ended in terms of where it's going, and it's enjoyable too, because there's a master plan, but then you're kind of just like on the path, and you're just enjoying the ride a little bit. I don't know if there's your sprawling answer to your question.
No. I mean, that's...
I think you had a better question than I had a better answer. But,
No, I think the answer was great. I mean, that's the thing is like, it seems like for your job you can't really do like a one size fits all. Like everything is going to be different, and it's like, for like Tom's situations can change, so it changes like what like the long-term outlook for his like Marvel work's going to be. So it's like you have to be able to, it seems like you kind of have to be able to have a plan, but also have flexibility baked into it if something comes up.
Yeah. Well, and the seasonal model, like, it's right. There's not like an official switch to that yet, but that is nice that it just feels like in general we're becoming more open to like books that feel like they're reaching their natural conclusion. Let them reach that natural conclusion. And whereas in the past, I think it would have been more like, hey, this is an ongoing series. Let's keep it going no matter what. Mm-hmm. And then that's not the case for every book, obviously. I mean, that's maybe a nice thing about some of the books that I work on that aren't selling that great. Not that great, but like they're just not the huge sellers. So there's not that we are afforded that chance to stop if the book's at that point where it's. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel it's been the case in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it. I don't know. I mean, it's like some books, because like they're so successful. It's like they almost become. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily the case for how Marvel works, but it's like some things can become like a slave to their success. I mean, like for another medium, you look at like TV. And it's like when How I Met Your Mother first started, I really loved that show. But when it ended up being like 10 seasons of like still trying to meet the mother, you're just like, wow, this is a crazy story this guy is telling his kids. I can't believe this. I would not tell my kids about that. Yeah, so it's like you don't want to be like a prisoner to your own success, and like that's one of the nice things is like it seems like you have the ability to let people tell the story that they need to. I mean, like Jason is a perfect example, because like it started with Thor: God of Thunder, and like this story has been continuing naturally out of that since then, and it's come a long way from the God Butcher and like to. Right. Yeah, and like, I have to tell you something that I don't know if this would be a prideful moment for you or not, but I went down to Emerald City Comic Con this year with my wife, and she has never read comics ever, but she had dressed as like Thor for Halloween because she loves Thor. And then she found out there actually was, Jane Foster Thor, and she saw that there was like a Funko Pop toy of Jane Foster Thor at Emerald City Comic Con, and she thought it was awesome. And so she decided, based off of all of that she was going to pick up her very first comic, and she picked up the first volume of Thor from Jason Aaron and Russell Dowderman and Matt Wilson and everybody else. So I believe a comic you edited was her first comic.
All right, nice. Yeah, I mean that's nice to see a huge turnout that we've had for Jane Foster Thor. Yeah, I mean it's always fun to hear about new readers that are into it because there's something fresh.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Will, you have done, I love the comics you're working on. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about all of this, and thanks for taking time out of your night to chat.
No problem. Yeah, happy to do it. It was fun.
Wait, don't go. I have good news and I have bad news. Good news. Was Wil Moss awesome? Great guest. You can find him on Twitter at Wil_Moss, and his work in all those books I listed in the beginning. He's doing a lot. The bad news is I have sad news for everyone. I'm actually closing Sketch this week. It's hard to say closing given the fact I'm the only person who's working on it, but the site will no longer have it. It's not actually closing. Basically what's happening is I will no longer be posting on it. And the reason why is, frankly, taking on a site entirely by yourself is kind of insane. It was a crazy amount of work, and I told myself I'd give it a year, and it's just kind of overwhelming. So you might be wondering, what does that mean for Off Panel? After all, you are listening to the podcast, so odds are you like it. You might not like it. I don't know. I mean, you could hate listening to it or something. Off Panel will be returning in August, so yay, that's great. And not only that, I actually already have 4 guests lined up for August that are fantastic. I mean, we're talking like highest echelons of comic creators. Fantastic. It'll be really great. Not only that, but I'm actually planning on making it 2 episodes a week. What that means is we'll still have the Wednesday episode that's going to be comic creator interviews, but there will also be a weekend episode that will be looking at talking to not just comic creators, but also people that interest me that are doing great things outside of comics. That could mean anything. We'll see where it takes me. So yeah, it's coming back in August. It's going to be great. Let me know your thoughts on the expanded potential schedule. I've had a lot of people say that they wish there was more episodes. Maybe you'll be getting what you want. If you want to follow me to see what I'm up to next, follow me on Twitter at SliceFriedGold. You can also follow at SketchComic on Twitter. I will still be posting there about all my comic thoughts, so that's a good place. I'll also be starting up a weekly or bi-weekly email newsletter, which you can follow at tinyletter.com/sketched. That's SKTCHD. That's going to have my sketch-like thoughts, except for they won't be articles that take months to write. Instead, they'll just be ridiculous thoughts. And you should probably enjoy it. I don't know. If you liked my writing before, you'll probably like that. Besides that, make sure to subscribe to Off Panel because it will return. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Play Music and more. I'll also be posting it on Sketch still, and it'll be on my Libsyn page. But thank you so much to everyone. I really appreciate everyone listening, reading, emailing, giving me feedback, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, thank you again, and I will see you guys in August.